Okay. Hello, everyone. So we will call this meeting to order at 12:09 p.m. We will start with our territorial acknowledgement, and we respectfully acknowledge that the SFSS is located on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, and Katzie nations. Unceded means that these territories have never been handed over, sold, or given up by these nations, and we are currently situated on occupied territories. Now, I will start the roll call of attendance. I will start with myself. So, in the roll call of attendance, basically, you have to tell your name, your pronouns, and your access needs. So, my name is Vaibhav Arora, and I'm the VP of Events and Student Affairs at SFSS, also the chair of this committee. My pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs are met. Now I will go with our student at large body, Arman.
So I think there was some connection problems. So yeah, I will start. My name is Arman, and my pronouns are he and him. And I'm in my fourth year in economics, and I'm doing business minor. Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Arman. Digil.
Hey everyone, my name is Sujal. You can call me TJ, and my pronouns are he, him. And all my needs, accessible needs, are met.
Accessibility needs like your Wi-Fi, your connection, and if you have any other problems coming to this meeting, so all those things. Thanks, Digil. Next on the list is Physics Student Association Counselor Daniel.
Yeah, hi, I'm Daniel. I use any and all pronouns, and all my access needs are met.
Thanks, Daniel. Now we will move to our society staff, our member services coordinator clubs, Ricky.
Hi, my name is Ricky. My pronouns are he, him, his, and all my access needs are met. Thank you.
Thanks, Ricky. Next on the list is our member services coordinator clubs, Nancy. Is she here yet?
I think she just joined.
Okay, so I can come back. Member services coordinator clubs, Melanie.
Hi, I'm Melanie. Pronouns are she, her, hers, and my access needs are met.
Thanks, Melanie. Do we have Dipti here? No, I guess, right? Okay, so we will go forward, and the member services coordinator journalist, Rachel.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rachel, pronouns she, her, hers. I'm the member services coordinator generalist, and all of my access needs are met.
Thanks, Rachel. Our member services coordinator, student unions and groups, Anna Riva.
She put hers in the chat.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry. So Anna is saying she is losing her voice. So Anna, she, her pronouns, one of the member services coordinators working with student unions and groups. Accessibility needs are met. Thanks, Anna. Our member services coordinator, sorry.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ifwa. My pronouns are she, her, hers. All my access needs are met.
Thanks, Ifwa. We missed on the list was Nancy. Nancy, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi there, I'm Nancy, Member Services Club Coordinator 2, sorry. And my pronouns are she, her, and hers, and my access needs have been met.
Thanks, Nancy. Our admin assistant, how do you pronounce your name? Rian?
Rian.
Rian.
Yeah.
Rian, go ahead.
My
Thank
name
you.
is Rian. She, her pronouns, and all my access needs are met.
Thanks, Rian. Okay, so moving on to our consent agenda, it says be it resolves to adopt the consent agenda by unanimous consent. On the list is 4.1.1 matters arising from the minutes. Our last meeting was on 13. Okay, so this one member services advisory committee minutes. So it says be it resolved to receive and file the following minutes on 14/10/2021 MSA. I will seek unanimous consent for this. If anybody wants to dissent, please list yourself in the chat or raise your hand. Seeing none, this motion is carried. Moving on to our main agenda, it says be it resolved to adopt the consent agenda by unanimous consent. I'm again going to seek Unanimous consent. If anybody wants to dissent, please list yourself in the chat or raise your hand. Seeing none, this motion is carried. Okay, so moving on to adoption of the agenda. So just letting again everybody know on this, like if you want to make any amendments to the agenda, if you have like any discussion items, new business, you want to discuss over, you can still make amendments onto agenda, and we can change in this line item. So it says be it resolved to adopt the agenda as presented. Can I have I will move this. Can I have a seconder? Oh, MSC3, is it Melanie?
Hi, yes, sorry. There's an item we want to add to the agenda.
Sounds good. Do you want to type it out?
Sure, I'll put it in the chat.
Okay, so first, I still need to have a seconder for that. I moved it. Can I have a seconder?
Physics seconds.
Physics second. Now, if I will open the floor for discussions. If anybody has any amendments, since Melanie has one, Melanie, feel free to type it. If anybody else has, please feel free to list in the chat or raise your hand. So this is discussion item, right?
Yes.
Thanks, Melanie. Okay, so I'll just add it here. So this will be added onto our agenda as item 10.3, limiting executive positions for students. Rian, please take care of this. Thank you. And Melanie moves this. Can I have a seconder for this? Add it onto the agenda. At large members, you can second as well. Oh, I need a seconder for this. Can I have a seconder?
Physics seconds.
Physics second. Thanks, Daniel. Moving on to our main agenda, be it resolved to adopt the agenda as presented. We already have the mover and seconder for that. I will seek unanimous consent. If anybody wants to dissent, please list yourself in the chat or raise your hand. Seeing none, this motion is carried as amended. Thank you. Okay. Going on to our new business. So our 9.1 says electing vice chair for Member Services Advisory Committee fiscal year 2022 to 2023. And that was submitted by me, VP Events and Student Affairs. So it says be it resolved to appoint X as the vice chair of the Member Services Advisory Committee for the 2022-2023 council year. I'm gonna type it here. Just give me a quick second. So I will move this. Can I have a seconder for this?
Physics seconds.
Physics second. Thank you. I will seek nominations now. Anybody who wants to go for the vice chair for MSAC for this fiscal year, please list yourself in the chat. Daniel, I think so. You are the only one. You want to go for this?
I'm the only option now.
Yes, Dryden is here, not here, so it's just you who's the counselor available today. So
okay.
Yes, list yourself in the chat. Yes, thank you. Anybody else from at-large members? I guess at-large members can be vice chairs as well. Okay. So this is an uncontested election. So that makes Bryden our vice chair for this committee for the whole year. Just give me a quick second. I'm gonna type it out. I'm just finding the document. So this was the motion basically. And now we are going to strike here instead of X. Daniel. Right. I'm going to seek unanimous consent for this. If anybody wants to dissent, please list yourself in the chat or raise your hand. Seeing none, this motion is carried. Congratulations, Daniel. You are the new vice chair of this committee for the next year. Thank you. Okay, moving on to our item 10 discussion items, 10.1 funding guidelines updates. This was submitted by our member services coordinator for clubs, Melanie Ling. We have an attachment for this as well. Melanie, if you want to go for this, I will give the floor to you. Thank you.
All right, thanks, B. So just a little preface here. So for the funding guidelines, we haven't updated it since I think March 2021 because we haven't been able to have an MSAC meeting, but there have been many changes that have needed to be added. So there's a lot to go through. I don't know if everyone has this like pulled up on their computer or if it'd be helpful if someone like shared their screen, like maybe I can do that, or V if you want to.
I'll give you the access for that.
Okay.
So yours is MSc 3, I guess, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I think so. You should be able to share your screen.
Okay. Can everyone see the document?
Yes.
Hello?
We can.
Everyone can see? Okay, so yeah, the most up-to-date version is the one that was revised on October 6th. I know there was the one from October 3rd, but that one, there were some changes made after that. So basically in this document, anything that's been highlighted in yellow is something that has been added. So we want to go through the changes, and I guess with each yellow highlighted item that we address, like if there's any like questions or disagreements on it, then you can just bring it up. So the first one is under just the general funding policies. We wanted to add something about the deadlines. So grants must be submitted at least 2 months before the date of the event or project if the amount requested is over $3,000, not including the date of submission. So we added this because funding that is over 3,000 requires a lot more time because it needs to go to exec and council, and then there's a lot of meetings and it can add up. So that's why we said 2 months, just to make sure there's enough time. If there's no comments, I'll move on to the next one. We added some stuff for the constraints on approval. So grants will not be approved for events or projects that have already taken place before the grant is approved. Retroactive expenses will not be reimbursed, and funds will only be reimbursed for expenses incurred after the grant is approved. This is something we had been following before. It just wasn't written down anywhere, and so we really need to have this like in the guidelines. And also grant funding for SFU services and related fees, such as catering, AV facilities, and venue costs will only be approved if the venue was booked through the SFSS. If groups are booking rooms and spaces through a different SFU department, they will have to fund the costs themselves. And the SFSS will only fund non-SFU related expenses in this case. Okay, moving on to the next. Oh, sorry, was there a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is that something new? Like where did that come from?
So this came out of discussions, I guess, with MEX a few years ago. It was actually something that was discussed, but was not written down either. But basically, they don't like it when they have different SFU billable items like AV and catering coming through different departments. So it should all be done through like one department, so all through SFSS or all through some other department. So the group kind of has to choose which route to go. They do it through us or they do it through a department.
Right, but we've had groups book space through their departments and the department pays and then we reimburse the department. Is that not allowed now, or can we still do that?
I kind of think that, I mean, yeah, like policy wise, it seems like we've been going off of just telling all the groups they need to go through the SFSS just because we are the ones overseeing them.
Yeah.
And it seems a bit strange for our groups to be like reimbursing a department.
Okay, but we have been doing that, and like I currently have a reimbursement from computing science. We did their entire flash with their faculty.
Okay, and so are we paying for the catering and stuff then, or?
No, we are like reimbursing the students and some of their faculty and stuff like that. I don't actually know it because they haven't submitted it yet, but I think that's kind of what it's going to be, because they have like a $5,000 grant and it was all booked and organized and planned by the faculty.
I think Nancy has her hand up.
Anna, I think what you mean is
Yeah.
that if the department is paying for everything, the catering and everything, then are you meaning that people are going to help? I can't hear.
Okay. All right, I guess we can discuss that later because that is a pretty like specific case.
Yeah, I think right now I'm having problems hearing because there's a lot of background noise too. That was the problem.
Yeah, we have construction and I'm losing voice.
But all we're trying to say is that for our groups, especially with the clubs, and it's easiest for Max and that because it was creating a lot of problems when there's bits and pieces going to all different departments, is that if you're booking the space and they're having catering, make sure it's all clear right away. That criminology, you are paying for everything. We're not going to send the bill over this way. The AV is going to be the Student Society, the criminology, you're going to get the catering, and so-and-so's another department's going to get something else. That's what they don't want because it gets to be a big mess.
I understand on the max side, but for student unions, departments and faculties are much more involved than for clubs. So different scenarios sometimes happen and max does not necessarily know about it. Because for them on their end, just the faculty pays because it's a faculty event. But on our side, the students are getting reimbursed for the things that they purchased for that event. Do you know what I mean? Like bookings, yes, they know that they have to go either through Max or through us. But other expenses sometimes would be coming from a grant for an event that was booked by the faculty.
Well, other expenses are fine. It's just the SFU billable ones, like the catering, AV facilities, like anything that's being ordered from SFU.
Okay.
Yeah, then we can't fund that. Like that has to be, it has to be ordered through the person who, or the department that booked the venue. And then we're just not going to pay for it if it was done through them. But like if it's random stuff like decorations or like prizes, like we can still fund that.
Okay, I see. Yeah, that could work then.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the next one. Under SFSS community and inclusivity, we just added that events and projects have to align with the SFSS issues policy. And then moving on to annual funding limits and fiscal year. So we just wanted to clarify what a year is, because some people think it's just a calendar year from January to December, but because our fiscal year is from May until April, we want to make it clear that the funding limitations apply for that fiscal year. So it says the SFSS fiscal financial year runs from May 1st until April 30th of the following year. Funds that are approved on an annual basis are approved for a fiscal year and not a calendar year. And then there's just an example. We also added something about the reimbursements. In order to be reimbursed from SFSS funds, the groups must submit the required check requisition form along with itemized original receipts, no photos or scanned copies, and any additional paperwork required by the SFSS Student Center. The forms and receipts must be submitted no later than 60 days after the date of the event. I'll move on if there's no comments. Okay, so now we're moving into policies for clubs only. So these don't apply to student unions. For the club resource funding, we added some limitations in regards to the printing. So we said that printing over $50 must be done by SFU Document Solutions. And if they're based at a different campus like Surrey, groups have to submit their print orders online because that can be done. And they can arrange for the printing to be mailed to the SFSS Surrey coordinator's office where it can be picked up by the group. Printing under $50 can be completed at any other commercial print shop. Printing done at home or at a library will not be reimbursed. Are there any comments or questions about that?
Melanie, I just want to ask quickly something for this. So for printing over $50, I think so sometimes SFU Docsol is a little bit expensive when we compare it to the outsiders, basically like the outside commercial shops. Do you have like any comments on this? Like if they will be still okay to you know, have it from Docsol instead of like any other commercial print shop? Since like
yes, so the reason why it has to be done at SFU Document Solutions is because it's a unionized print shop, and this was done in relation to an agreement that the union had with the employer. Nancy, I don't know if you want to go into more detail about it. Or maybe Sindhu. I think Nancy might be busy.
Sorry about that. I was with a student. What was the question? Sorry.
Oh, could you just explain a bit more about the agreement with like Document Solutions being the preferred print shop?
Okay, it is because it's a unionized shop, and it was a grievance because of the closure of the copy center. So I think you know Document Solutions is part of the union, Local 33. I can't even remember our local right now. Anyway, that was part of the agreement to keep it within as a unionized place, because we do all belong to the union, the QP. And the employer was totally in agreement with it. That was to satisfy the grievance. Does that make sense? Or you want more, V?
I think so. That makes more sense now. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
We would make exceptions sometimes if, like, for example, Document Solutions can't accommodate the request. If like they've run out of materials, or if it's like a super tight deadline they can't meet, then we might allow the group to go somewhere else to get the printing done, but they should notify us as well.
Okay, I think so. Then, do we need to add that as well in this, just to make it more clear and concise?
Yeah. Okay, I can make a note and then I can add that in. Okay. Okay, moving on to the next one. Under apparel and branded items. Oh, and sorry, this is for club and student union funding guidelines now, so it's both. For apparel and branded items, we just made changes to clarify it's for the fiscal year, not calendar year. Also added that for smaller items, we would fund stuff like face masks that are branded. Under food, we made some changes. Just because of inflation and everything going up, things are more expensive. And also because of some of the changes we made during COVID, we were being a bit more generous with the food funding. So we've changed it to $15 per person, up to $500 per event for up to 2 events per semester. And then $10 per person, up to $300 for each event thereafter. So if they've used up the 2 events at $500, then we would then approve for the subsequent events $10 per person, up to $300. And then that would be a limit of 3. And then after that, there would be no more food funding after the 5th event. For snacks and drinks, we are granting $4 per person with a maximum of $500 per event, which was increased from $3 before. There's no questions. We'll move on. Okay, yeah, under printing, this is the same thing. So before that was just under resource funding because that's used for printing, but then this is also just printing in general with the granting. And I can make that change as well about the exceptions. Just the change there about the fiscal year. Oh, okay. So I guess that's it for those changes, but I do remember, I think, Rachel, you brought up something. I'll go back to the general policies on the first page. Something that needs to be maybe changed and taken out from instead of added is this policy here about grant revisions. Only 1 grant revision request from the group will be allowed after the grant request is submitted, but the request must be made within 24 hours of submission. Otherwise, it will not be considered. So I think this is a bit strict and it hasn't actually been followed in practice. So I think that's something that can be taken out. Does anyone else want to comment?
Ricky has a direct response. Ricky, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's worth mentioning that the original intent of this clause was to prevent numerous changes and differences in the grant, and that was the original intention. I think with the portal the way it was previously as well, changes to the grant budget was a little bit complex and it wouldn't be reflected accurately sometimes. So that's why we implemented it in the first place. But we have made some updates to the budget changes with gravity, so it's reflected a little bit more accurately. We don't have to do some random adding of funds into the budget. So I think it's a little bit easier to just do the revisions without correcting a whole bunch of things. But I think it is worthwhile to have some sort of limitation about revisions and a timeline of when that revision cutoff is. So I don't know if we want to change it to a certain time up until the event, just to make sure that we can't have changes made after the event itself.
Since nobody has anything else, so I will like to add on to this. I guess we can do 72 hours. Like, I think so that's reasonable as well. Plus, we can say like 72 working hours. No, not working, right? Sorry, 72, just like 72 hours, like 3 days. So they can make an amendment in the like grant requisition if you know, they have any changes. Like it is like usually like sometimes like clubs are not really decisive of this. So if they want to make any changes within 72 hours, I think so that's still a reasonable amount of time for them. Next on the list is MSc 3.
Yes,
Sorry,
that's me.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I think it's kind of hard to say sometimes just because you know, there might be times when we aren't able to approve the grant until like the day before the event or something. So it depends on like when we get the information from the groups or when we can get confirmation of what is actually the expenses are going to be in the grant. And so I think it's a bit tough, and I do think it is something that we need to be more flexible on. So I'm not sure if we should have like something really strict. I think the only thing that we are quite strict on is that changes to grants will not be permitted after they have been approved. So once it's approved, like that's it. So any of the changes and discussion about the grant and the expenses should all happen beforehand. And groups should not be coming to us after the approval saying, oh, actually, I forgot to add this. I forgot about this expense. Like, we're not going to accept it.
Sounds good. We have Ricky on the list. Ricky,
yeah,
you have a direct
Sorry,
response.
Melanie
yes.
has covered it, so I'm good. Thank you.
Sounds good. So I think so Daniel retracted his direct response. We don't have anyone on the list. Okay. Anybody else has any questions on this? Feel free to go now. Anyone? Okay. Melanie, I'm just going to ask if you have anything else on this document. So for this, like these changes are still a discussion item. We have to take it to council, right? I guess to get it approved. All those changes.
Yeah, so I'll have to add in the stuff about the printing exceptions to make it more clear, and then I'll revise this section about the changes to grants. And then I can send you the revised version then to send to.
Sounds good. Yeah, we can have a meeting, one more meeting for this, and then we can take it to council.
Okay. And then there was another suggested change for food. Wait, Nancy, I don't know if you want to speak on this, but I remember you had mentioned to me if we wanted to add something about limiting the food for events that are specifically for club executives only.
Yes, because there seems to be quite a number of clubs that now found out that we provide funding for meetings and that they wish to have a meeting that's only for their execs, where there's funding for food. So I feel that maybe they're allowed one a semester and maybe not allowed any more than maybe $300, but not even that high. Like if we could come up with something, does that make sense? Because they want to have just like an executive meeting.
Sorry, Nancy, can you please repeat that? I just missed a little portion of that.
Okay, what it is that some of the clubs want to have just executive members in their club have a meeting to be able to plan, what's going to happen the semester or, next 2 semesters, whatever it might be. But they want to be able to go out somewhere and have, some food and chat about it. So,
Social.
yeah, sort of a social, but it's only the execs. So I kind of thought, it's nice to be able to do that, to allow them to do that, but have a limit that they can only have one of those max out of semester, but also a limit on how much funding we're going to provide. Because we don't want them saying, oh, well, we need, $800 for it. So we're going to have to give them $500 because that is the most we would give a club. But do you understand what I'm getting at? I think maybe a couple $100 maybe.
So just again, a question on that. So have we been getting requests like that before as well? Like, having social between the execs and then they're asking for grants for that?
Yes.
Okay. So do we still give them, or do we say we?
Well, of course you can give them some money. How can I know? Because they're working, they're saying they're working on the stuff for the club, right? It's something, some people might whoa, they shouldn't, but it's kind of, they're willing to put the work into it. So let's sort of, allow them to do it, but have a limit on it. There are actually quite a number of clubs doing it now, or would like to do it.
Yeah, sounds good. Melanie, do you have direct response to this?
Yeah, I agree with Nancy. It's just that the funding should be more toward the general membership as well. So we don't want it to be just executives using up all the food funding for their own exclusive team bonding events. So I think maybe we can specify then for these guidelines we have listed here that it's for events that are open to membership, and then we can have specific limitations for executive only food socials.
Sounds good. Do you have any statement that we can put in the document, like, just regarding the exact food funding, something like that? Or are we just mentioning like we are just giving certain amount of money every semester? Like if we are having like, planning, like while planning, you are having any lunch or dinner, so something like that.
I think it'd be good to put in a specific number, like something like this, like $10 per person up to 300 per event or some other number.
Mhm.
I don't know if Nancy, you have thoughts on a specific amount, or Ricky or Rachel.
Sorry, I had to take care of a student. I think maybe $10 is more than enough.
Yeah, I agree. $10 is more than enough.
Sounds good. Okay, so we can put it here. And how much should be the max cap for that?
I think maybe $200 at the most.
For each event, or like for the entire kind of like for each event, right?
Well, for that one event, because if we will allow them to have one executive meeting to plan things, and a cap of
Every semester.
$200 at $10 head, I mean, that's 20 people. That's plenty.
Sounds good for every semester, right? So we can also check on I think so we can talk more about our like the budget that we have, like the financial budget for this, for the club request, like if we are not exceeding that. So I think so I'm more than happy to have this in this document.
Wait, sorry, so that was $10 per person, max 200 per event. And then per semester, once per semester. Okay.
Once per semester, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. Okay, anything more on this document?
I think those were all the changes. Just in general, something to keep in mind though, the things we haven't like gone through to change today. Yeah, we're just thinking about inflation, I guess, like we increased the food amounts a little, but maybe there's other things like games or like the website stuff. I don't know if we want to consider like prizes. We don't have to do that today, but just maybe to keep in mind for the future, like if we do want to increase all the amounts.
Sounds good.
So
thanks, Melanie.
Sorry, yeah, I think that's it for the funding guidelines. And if no one else has any comments or questions.
Yes, I'm going to give out a last call. If anybody has any questions, feel free to list yourself or raise your hand or just like, yeah. Okay, seeing then, I think so we are pretty much done with this discussion item. We can go to our next discussion item 10.2. Club terms of reference updates. That is again brought up by Melanie. Melanie, you have the stage for that as well.
Okay, thanks, Steve. So the same thing with this document, a lot of changes that needed to be done in the last year. And yeah, we've added some things highlighted in yellow, so I'll go through those now. Under the first section, purposes and aims, we added, so it says clubs must adhere to the SFSS bylaws, policies, and regulations, as well as SFU policies. And then we also just added some kind of sub policies about the clubs may not be approved if their proposed activities conflict with SFSS partners, such as MECs or facilities. Clubs may not be approved if their mandates and proposed activities are too similar to existing clubs, and the approval of clubs will be at the discretion of the SFSS member services club coordinators, our insurance providers, and the SFSS executives and council.
Melanie, sorry, I have a quick question there. In point number 2, so they may not be approved if their mandates and proposed activities are too similar to existing clubs. So yes, some clubs host like similar events and their activities might be similar to each other. So what's the stance behind that?
Yeah, that's a good point. So yes, similar is kind of a very vague and subjective term, but we're talking about, I guess, more in relation to the mandate then, like that, there can't be two clubs that are kind of doing the exact same thing. Like if we have the board game club, and they're just like having board games for people to get together and play. And then we have another club that calls themselves like the tabletop game club, which is like the same thing. Like we can't have two groups essentially doing the same exact thing, just with a different name.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's definitely okay for like all these different clubs that have different mandates and different interests to all have like icebreakers or to have different socials. So
Sounds good. So like we're just not approving like new clubs who have similar kind of vision or like similar goals like the other groups, right?
yes, exactly.
Ricky, go ahead.
Thanks, V. It's also worth mentioning, like, part of the reason why we have this is we don't want to disperse these groups too far apart. I know there's a lot of new clubs that want to start their own subsection of an existing club, but the idea behind it is to keep the numbers higher so these clubs have a chance of surviving. A lot of these new clubs, they start off with 10 people and 6 months later they're down to 2. So having an existing club and having those people join that existing club gives it a better chance of surviving long term. And it also gives them a little bit more funding too. If they're planning an event, we can provide a little bit more funding to a larger group than a smaller group, and it's a better use of resources.
Sounds good. Thank you. Melanie, you can go ahead.
Okay, thanks. So I'll move on to the next section under club name. So we added that the club name can be modified, but only with the agreement of 50% of the membership, and the change of the club name should not change the original intent or mandate of the club. And a meeting must be held so that members can vote on the name change, and the proposed changes must be made in writing to notify the member services coordinators and must be approved first.
Sorry, again, I have something on this.
Sure.
So sometimes, I have like learned about some disputes within the clubs and about the name changes as well. So I think that this should be, if we can change this 50% to 2/3, that would make it more effective, because at least we need 2/3 to at least, like, if we are doing something really big with the club, like changing a club's name is like still like a really like important and significant thing for a club. So if we are doing that, I think so it should be 67%, like 2/3 basically. Do you guys like agree with that? Like, if you have anything on that, yeah, just list yourself in the. Go ahead, Melanie.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I guess 50% is kind of like cutting it close. Like, there's still, if there'd be like 50% of people who don't agree, it's quite contentious. So yeah, maybe a bigger majority of 2/3 is preferred.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, you can go ahead with proceed with the document.
Okay. The next part is under statement of agreement. We just edited this part. So any agreements that have not been approved by the SFSS will result in any events or projects being canceled and the club being provided a warning at the discretion of the SFSS executives, council, and staff. Multiple infractions will result in disciplinary action. Okay, the next section with major changes is the membership and suspension of membership. So I think it was just a bit of a wording change. Membership is only open to all undergraduate SFU students in good standing, just to make that clear. And also Fraser international students. And then we changed this part. So club members must be registered and confirmed in the SFSS club portal. Participation in club activities should be limited as much as possible to club members and the SFSS membership. Non-membership involvement in club activities should be limited and should not take away from the opportunities of the SFSS membership. So I think that was just to kind of make sure groups aren't hosting too many events that are just catered towards public, or sometimes they're hosting events like just for high school students, and considering that funding is coming from like the SFSS members, the benefit of those events should be going back to those members. And then the next part concerning suspension. So a member may be suspended from the club by a vote of the majority, above 50% of the club executives and general membership through an in-person or online vote. And then also with the approval of the member services coordinators, the executives must call a meeting with at least 1 week's notice to formally vote on the motion to suspend a member, and they must record specific meeting minutes. I think previously it didn't state that approval was needed first, but we should be notified if they're going to suspend a member. And then we also added the section on appeals. So if the member is suspended by a vote, the suspended member can appeal by emailing the member services club coordinators, and then we'll review the issues and what happened. But if the member is suspended because like the member services coordinator have conducted an investigation and decided to suspend the member, then they can appeal to the SFSS executive instead. And so requests to appeal membership suspension must include their full name, the club name, date of suspension, reason for suspension, and all the reasons they are appealing. Are there any questions or concerns about this?
Anybody has any questions? If you wanna have any questions, just feel free to list.
Sorry, actually, I wanted to bring up one part about this section. So a member may be suspended from the club by a vote of the majority of the club executives and general membership. I remember there had been previous discussion among some of the coordinators before about not including the membership in this vote and having it just be a vote of the executives. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that.
So when we say general membership, is it like anybody who's a part of that?
Yeah, I guess it would include any of the members that are listed in the portal.
Okay, so when we do that, for me, it would be, I would not say like 50% is enough for like suspending a member. It should be again at least 2/3 to suspend a member if we are having general membership in there. Even if like the club executives have that power, that should still be, I think so, 2/3, because sometimes we have seen like, people turn against someone and then they have like personal envy, and that goes on. Anybody has any other suggestions? Ricky, you can go ahead.
I think it might be worthwhile just adding a clarifying point that the 50% is of the voting population and not the entire population as a whole.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
So the voting population is usually the execs, right? Or does the general membership has the voting power too in a club?
No, not quite. The voting population would include, it would just be of all the people that actually voted, not just the execs. Because if we do the whole entire membership and there's 300 people, but only 15 people vote, then it would never reach that 50%. But if we do 15% of that 15, then it's 8 of the 15 would make it pass.
Sounds good. Melanie, you can go ahead, yes.
Wait, we have in brackets like excluding abstentions. Do you think that kind of captures that, Ricky, or is that not clear enough? Because it's basically saying 50% through like this vote, but it does not include anyone who did not vote.
It sort of touches on it. I don't know if Daniel has a
Daniel, I'll give the floor to you. Ricky.
I was just going to say
Go ahead.
I agree with what Ricky has said here, rather than just excluding abstentions.
Okay, so just like I think so according to Daniel, again, it is like we should make it like more clear that 50% is like people who will vote rather than just like the entire membership. So that makes more sense to me as well. But I'm still a little hesitant on like 50%. Like for usually like for suspending a member, even in our general, I think so. Like council as well, we keep it 67%, right? Like 2/3. So do you guys still want it to be like 50% or like 2/3 of that? Melanie, you have the floor, yes.
Yeah, I agree. Like similar to the thing with the name change, like I think 2/3 is a more clear majority. And yeah, I can also write up like a revision for making it more clear about the 2/3 of the voters and not just the membership.
Sounds good. If anybody has any dissents on this, or like if anybody wants to add on something about the 50%, list yourself in the chat, like just have a direct response. Okay, seeing none, I would still again give the floor to you, Melanie. You can carry on with the document.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So moving on to the next section about executives. So we revised the section on executives being impeached. So any executive member may be impeached from the club at a general meeting or a special meeting, in person or virtual. In order for an impeachment vote to be held and deemed valid, a quorum of 50% of the membership, including club executives, must be met. The duration of the penalty must be determined before the expulsion vote is conducted. The impeachment will pass should the majority over 50% of the votes be in favor of impeachment, and the majority is to be calculated without counting those who abstain. An impeached executive member has the right to appeal and may rejoin the club if another meeting is held, and the majority, 50% of the voters, not including those who abstain, vote in favor of the reinstatement of the executive. A quorum of 50% of the membership, including executives, must be met. Yeah, so for the 50%, I think we can probably change that to 2/3.
I would say this can be still 50% since this is just a quorum.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so quorum of, so at least 50% of the membership has to show up.
Yes, that's just a quorum, right?
Yeah, but
So that
yeah,
can
sorry
be
for
50.
the voting, I guess would be 2/3.
I think so, yes. For impeachment as well, yes.
I did have a question about this as well, though, because basically for the membership suspension, they're suspended by vote, but they appeal to get unsuspended by contacting the member services coordinators or else going through exec and council. For the executive member impeachment, though, then it's like it requires a vote to get rid of them, but then it's also another vote to bring them back in. And I'm wondering if it might be redundant, because if the majority of voters vote them out, like why would they then reverse that? Like,
Ricky, you have the floor. Thank you.
Melanie, I think I can see maybe during the appeal process itself that more facts come to light, and then perhaps that might change the decision of some of the executives in that case.
okay. Yeah, I guess we can leave it then. If there's nothing else, we can move on to the next section.
Sure. Let's see. I don't think anybody has any questions on this yet. So yes, we can go ahead.
The next change was under finances and ownership of assets. So we said that any costs incurred by the club via the SFSS will be deducted from the club trust account. That's currently something that is done in practice, but it was not reflected in the policies. And if the trust account balance becomes negative, services will be suspended for the club until they deposit enough funds to pay off the balance owing.
So, sorry, I have a question, Melanie. So when we say the trust account, if that becomes negative, do they need to pay from their own pockets to make it work?
Yeah, sometimes, unfortunately, that might be the case. But hopefully, like a lot of groups do have like external bank accounts where they have other club funds. Sometimes they have like sponsorship money and they like deposit their checks in their external bank account, and then they'll just write us a check to pay off what they owe.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, okay, I guess that was it.
Amazing. So anybody, any questions, any statements, any suggestions? Feel free to, or list yourself in the chat. Otherwise, we are good to go to the next discussion item. Anyone? Just to reiterate, this document is really important. So any suggestions, like, any meaningful suggestions can make a really good impact. So this is like, this is going to be applied to almost like all the student unions and 200 clubs that we have. So.
Oh, sorry, I wanted, this is only for clubs, actually, not student unions.
Okay, so yeah, all the like 200 plus clubs, right? So. Anyone? Okay, seeing none, I guess we are good to go for our next discussion item, 10.3, which is limiting executive positions for students. Melanie, you have the floor for this.
Okay, hang on, I'll stop sharing my screen. Yeah, so we noticed that there are certain clubs or certain individuals that are executive members for like several clubs, like, and we think maybe there should be some kind of limitation that says like you can only be an executive for one, maybe two clubs, instead of having these people be executives for like 5 different clubs. It's just so that it's more fair and that there's more club executive like opportunities for other students, so you don't have these people just taking up all these positions so that other people don't get a chance to participate as an executive in the club. Yeah, it can also be a bit much sometimes with some people causing problems in some clubs, and then we notice a pattern of like the same issues coming up in the other clubs that they're part of. Nancy, I don't know if you want to add to this, since this was originally your discussion item.
Nancy,
Sure. Okay. Yes, I would like to see it because I did speak to a student about it recently too, holding, several executive positions in different clubs. And when I expressed to them that, well, have you thought that maybe there's other people that wouldn't mind that experience? Because when you're taking away from it and you're holding 6 different ones right now, some of them don't realize they're doing that. See, so maybe they have to be kind of told, like, you shouldn't always try and allow, if somebody's already holding 2 executive positions, 2 treasurer positions, that's all that should be. There shouldn't be any more. Well, there have been some problems with some. Melanie's right. And it kind of is quite consistent with the problems. I don't want to bring them up here because it's not the appropriate place. I just would like to see a limit on it. It's also when someone sends in a check requisition and all the check recs are for different clubs, but this person's name is on all the check requisitions for all this money to come back to them. So I mean, I'm not saying they're doing anything that they shouldn't be doing. I'm just saying that maybe we should try and allow other members in the membership that opportunity.
Okay. So if we say like we should limit it, what's the number that you're thinking of?
I'm thinking maybe two, like two, meaning you can be a president of one club, you can be a president of another club. And then if you wanted to be the marketing person of another club, that's okay. I'm just saying hold, if you're going to be president, maximum 2 president positions or 2 treasurer positions. That's all. I think that's more than enough.
Sounds good. Daniel, you have a direct response. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think it is a good idea to limit it, but maybe not too severely, because I think there are clubs that, for instance, like just need to exist and they don't have the execs to fill the roles that are necessary for them to exist sometimes. So there are people who, for instance, I know hold multiple financial positions in clubs. As an example. So I'm not sure what the best limit would be, but I think maybe 2 is too few. Maybe like 3, 4.
Thanks, Daniel. Nancy, you have any responses for this?
I think, did you understand what I was trying to say, Daniel? Is that I'm not saying, like, if they want to be the president of one club and they want to be a treasurer of another club and they want to be a treasurer of another club and the marketing person of another club, that's fine. They're holding at least different executive positions. I'm just saying not the same one. Like, not to hold 8 finance, the treasurer positions. That's what I'm trying to say. Or not 8 of presidents.
I agree with Nancy here. Like, that makes more sense to me. Like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense for a person to be president of like 4 different clubs. Instead, like, they can be president of 2, vice president of 1, and like whatever other positions they want to hold in other clubs. So that makes more sense to me. Daniel, go ahead. I will give the floor to you.
Yeah, I think that I understand what you're saying. I don't think people should be presidents of like multiple clubs, like at an like unnecessary like amount like that. But I think that specifically sometimes with finances, it might just be difficult to find people that actually even want to participate in those things. So having a person that like fills in essentially as an executive for those kinds of positions for the clubs would be good. But I mean, at the same time, they could be looking to like train somebody else who maybe could take on that position. But I don't know how to deal with that at that point. That's not really in this conversation.
Thanks, Daniel. Yeah, I think so both of you make sense here. Like, it doesn't make a sense for a person to go like same position in different clubs. But you're right too, Daniel. Like, some clubs have those positions vacant, as I remember once, 3, like in 2018 or 19, sometime, yeah. So 3 different like clubs I was in. The position for director of funding was empty. And yes, if like a person has that same kind of expertise, like say in funding, they might want to go for the same position. But yes, both of you make sense here. So we have to come to a conclusion where we can fit in like both the points, I would say. Melanie, you have the floor.
Yeah, so I do agree on like there needing to be some kind of limitation, and it might just be helpful to have it in writing so we have something to refer back to. But in terms of the implementation, I am just a little concerned about since there are certain people that are already occupying these roles, it would be a bit difficult at this point to tell them like you need to quit some of these positions, and then those clubs then have to rush and try to fill it in and find someone to replace them. And yeah, I'm not really sure how the club executive membership or like how they're going to react to like having this in place. I don't know if there will be pushback, but yeah, just the implementation of it. And also it might be difficult for us to enforce because we can't check every single time that like someone gets added as an executive. Like then we can't go in and screen and like see if they're already an executive for a different club. Like that is a lot of administrative work that I don't know if is feasible for our team.
Thanks, Melanie. Absolutely, like, and especially like after COVID, I've seen like not many people have been really willing to, you know, be enthusiastic about like, you know, joining a club or like being an executive. That like, you know, that zeal to do something for a club, like, or to do something has gone down, especially after COVID. So like there are only like I've seen like there are just like a few people who have been doing so much in all of those clubs with the same position. So that's going to be tricky. Yeah. So I guess we need a more formal discussion on just this topic and with more documentation, how we can kind of like properly implement it without any backlash. Yes, so that's pretty much it about it. Anybody else who wants to say anything? Nancy, you want to go ahead, or anybody else has any direct responses or questions on this? Anyone? So if we don't have anything on this discussion, that was the last item for this meeting, and the next is adjournment. So I'm gonna give like a last call for any questions here. Any questions, any statements, any suggestions? Feel free to list. Otherwise, we can move on to adjournment. I'll give 5 more seconds. Seeing none, we have reached to the most exciting part of the meeting, adjournment. So this motion says, be it resolved to adjourn the meeting at 1:16 p.m. I can move this. I have a seconder.
Seconds.
Daniel seconds that. Thank you, Daniel. I'm going to seek unanimous consent. If anybody wants to dissent, please list yourself in the chat or raise your hand. Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned. Woohoo! We are done with the first MSAC meeting for the year. Congratulations, guys. Thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
Thank you.